Lesson 3.4, multiplying and dividing integers. The objectives for today are, we're going to be talking about how to multiply integers. Number 2, how to divide integers. And number 3, how to solve problems by multiplying and dividing integers. How to multiply and divide integers. And we're going to start with the rules for multiplying integers. Just a fair warning, dividing integers will have the same rules as multiplication, and it's all based on the signs. So there could be 3 different cases when you multiply two numbers. You can have 2 positive numbers, or you can have 2 negative numbers, meaning that both numbers will have the same sign, or your numbers can have different signs, positive, negative, or negative, positive. Either way, it's 2 different signs. So if your numbers have the same signs, 2 positives or 2 negatives, your answer, when you multiply them to, the answer is going to be positive. When your numbers have different signs, positive or negative, negative or positive, the product is going to be, the answer is going to be negative. So let's take a look at some of the examples. You can also, before we go into the examples, you can say, so you have you multiplying positive number times a positive. The answer is positive. Negative number times a negative number. The answer is positive. Positive number times negative number. The answer is negative. You can switch them around. Negative number times positive number. The answer is negative. Both negative. All right, so those are our rules. So let's look at the example. First example, find the product. You have positive times negative. The answer is negative. 4 times 6, 24, negative 24. Negative 2 times negative 8. So same signs. The answer is positive. So it's going to be 2 times 8, 16. Negative 3 times 12. Negative number, positive number. The answer is negative. And 3 times 12 is 36. Negative 36. Right. So in part A, B, and C, we only had 2 numbers that we multiplied. In the next set of examples, we'll have more than 2 numbers. So we're going to do the first 2, get the answer, and then multiply by the third number. And if it's 4 numbers, we're going to do the first 2, find the answer, multiply by the third, find the answer, multiply by the fourth, and keep going until we have our answer. So in part D, we're going to look at 5 times negative 4. You have positive times negative. The answer is negative. 5 times 4, 20. So negative 20. And then you multiply negative 20 times 6. Go through the same process again. You have negative times positive. The answer is negative. 20 times 6 gives you 120. So the answer to part D is negative 120. Feel free to pause the video, or as if you're taking notes, do feel free to pause the video or rewind it and go through this process again. Next one, part E. You have negative 4 times negative 7 times negative 10. So we're going to do the first 2, negative 4 times negative 7. Both numbers are negative. The answer is going to be positive. So 4 times 7 is 28. And then we multiply 28 times negative 10. So I'm multiplying a positive 28 by a negative 10. The answer is going to be negative, and 28 times 10 is 280. So the answer to part E is negative 280. Moving on to the next one. Now we have 4 numbers to multiply. So we are going to multiply negative 2 times negative 5 times negative 8 times negative 2. Start with the first 2. Negative 2 times negative 5 gives you positive 10. Rewrite the rest of the problem. All right, so I have positive 10 times negative 8 times negative 2. Look at the positive 10 times negative 8. That will give you negative 80. And then you multiply negative 80 times negative 2. So you have positive answer, and it's going to be 160. So the answer to part F is 160. In part G, we have negative 9 squared. So we have to recall that exponents mean repeated multiplication. So negative 9 squared means negative 9 times negative 9, right? So that means you're multiplying two negative numbers, and negative 9 times negative 9 gives you 81, positive 81. In part H, you have negative and then 11 squared. So that means that you have negative 11 times 11. The difference between the G and H is how you write the number. So in part G, the negative was enclosed in the parentheses, so I was multiplying negative 9 times negative 9. But in part H, only the exponent applies to 11 only, so it means 11 times 11, and the negative sign belongs to both numbers. So it's just there, and the squared are actually 11. So what you have is negative 11 times positive 11, and it's going to give you negative 121. Okay. So the next couple of problems, you notice that in the next 5 problems, we are multiplying 1, negative 1, and then we're raising it to various powers. So we're basically multiplying negative 1 twice, so 3 times, or 4 times, and so forth. This will allow us to see a special pattern. All right, so evaluate the following powers of negative 1. So negative 1 squared means negative 1 times negative 1, which will give me positive 1. Negative 1 to the power 3 means negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 3 times. All right, so negative 1 times negative 1 gives me positive 1 times negative 1 will give me negative 1. So here, let's go ahead and write those answers. So it's going to be 1. It's going to be negative 1. So let's go ahead and move on to part C. Now we multiply negative 1 4 times. So I'm going to have to write it 4 times. All right. So the first two will give me 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. So these two will give me negative 1 times negative 1. And the answer is going to be positive 1. All right, so negative 1 to the power of 4 gives you 1. All right, let's take a look at our exponents. When the exponent was an even number, the answer was positive. When the exponent was an odd number, the answer was negative. So that allows me do part D without actually writing negative 1 27 times. Right? 27 is an odd number. The exponent is an odd number. So that means negative 1 to the power of 27 is going to be negative 1. 30, in part E, negative 1 raised to the power of 30. The exponent is an even number, so that means the answer is going to be 1. Okay? So the pattern is here. If you multiply even number of negatives, the answer is positive. If it's odd number of negatives, the answer is going to be negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that out. So even exponents produce positive answer, and the odd exponents produce negative answer. Now, when do they do that? We need to specify, because that is not a general rule for all the numbers. When they are applied to negative numbers, to a negative base. All right. Okay, so that's our pattern. So if you have a negative base, meaning that main number, -1, was there, the even exponents produce positive answer, and the odd exponents produce negative answer. Okay, so division rules. The good news is the sign rules are the same as for multiplication of two integers. If you divide two negative numbers, you have the positive answer. If you divide two positive numbers, you get a positive answer. And if you divide negative and positive, you get a negative answer. All right, so here they are. Negative divided by negative equals negative. Positive divided by a positive equals positive, and negative divided by a positive equals negative. Positive divided by a negative equals negative. So those are our rules. Okay, so we have negative, so let's look at the example number 3. In example number 3, part A, you have -36 divided by -6. You got positive. You get two negative numbers. The answer is positive, so you have the answer is 6. You have 56 divided by -7. The answer is -8. All right, a couple of word problems before we move on to our last part of our lesson. When a severe winter storm moved through Albany, New York, the change in temperature between 4 and 7 p.m. was -27 degrees Fahrenheit. What was the average hourly temperature change? Okay. So in order for us to figure that out, you need to take the -27 that the temperature dropped over between 4 and 7 p.m. That's at 3 hours. So we divide a negative by a positive. The answer is negative. And then 27 divided by 3 is a -9. So the temperature dropped by 9 degrees Fahrenheit every hour, the average drop in temperature. Example 5. During a drought, the change in elevation for a retention pond was -9 inches over a 1-month period. At this rate, what will the change in elevation be after 5 months? So in 1 month, we dropped in -9. We need to find the 5 months. So then we need to take the -9 multiplied by 5. We're going to have the 1 month drop multiplied by 5 months. All right, so I have negative times positive. The answer is negative. 9 times 5 is 45. So if this pattern continues, the change in elevation after 5 months will be -45 inches. Will be dropped in 45 inches. All right. The next set of questions are a review questions that pulling together everything that we've learned so far about integers. Okay. I am going to go through these problems. Make sure that if you need to pause and then take notes or rewind and rewatch it again. All right, so part A. So all of these, we need to simplify all of these. So we start with part A, and what I see here is subtraction of integers. When we subtract integers, we insert the plus sign between them, and then we do two integers at a time. So let's go ahead and rewrite this problem. I have -2 plus -6 plus -3 plus -10, right? So then let's look at the first two. -2 plus -6 gives you -8. Rewrite the rest of the problem. Plus -3 plus -10. And then go for the next two numbers, the first two numbers. -8 plus -3 gives you -11 plus -10. All right, this is the last set of numbers. -11 plus -10 gives you -21. The answer to the first problem is -21. Part B, you have 55 minus 3, open parentheses, 2 minus 6, close parentheses. So in order of operations, we're going to do the parentheses first. So that means I need to do 2 minus 6 first. I'm going to rewrite that as 2 plus -6, and that turns out to be that, so that is a -4. All right, so I have 55 minus 3 times -4. Okay, so that's a multiplication. Don't forget about that. All right, so now I have the multiplication, and I have subtraction. So I'm going to do 3 times -4, which will give me -12. So I'm going to write down 55. I'm going to bring the subtraction sign from above, minus, and then the answer from 3 times -4 is a -12. All right. Now I see that I have two negative signs. They cancel each other. Negative times negative gives me a positive. So what I have is 55 plus 12, and I have 67. So the answer to part B is 67. Part C. I have an absolute value of 4 minus 9 minus absolute value of -10. Absolute value is the distance between the number and a 0, and it's always positive. So I'm going to do 4 minus 9. So the 4 plus -9, break those down, and that will be -5. I have not dropped the absolute value brackets, so it is going to be the absolute value of -5 minus absolute value of -10. Now that I only have one number inside each of the absolute value brackets, I can evaluate my absolute value. So the absolute value of -5 is a 5, because -5 is 5 units away from 0. So I have 5. Copy down the minus sign. The absolute value of -10 is how far -10 away from 0, which is exactly 10 units. So absolute value of -10 is a 10. Now I have the last piece of a puzzle, 5 minus 10. I'm going to insert my plus sign, and now it is an addition problem, 5 plus -10. So 10 is greater than 5. That means the answer is going to be a negative number, and then the difference between 10 and 5 is a 5. So the answer to part C is -5. Part D. Here we have absolute value in the numerator of 10 minus 50, and in the denominator we have exponents, 6 squared minus -4 squared. I'm going to do the numerator first. So the absolute value of, so I'm going to find absolute value of 10 minus 15, right? It's going to be 10 plus negative 50, all inside the absolute value. That means 50 minus 10, which is going to be absolute value of negative 40. All right? And then the absolute value of negative 40 is how far negative 40 away from 0, which is a 40. So on top, the answer to absolute value of 10 minus 50 is 40. So that's step 1. Step 2, I am going to do the denominator. So I'm going to do 6 squared. So here we go, 6 squared minus negative 4 squared. So 6 squared is 6 times 6, 36. Okay. I cannot combine the two negative numbers. I cannot make that a plus yet, because what I'm doing is I am squaring negative 4. That means negative 4 times negative 4. That's what the square means. So I have to do that first. All right. Well, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So I have 36 minus 16. All right. So 36 minus 16 is 20. All right. So in step 3, I'm going to put everything together. So I have 40 on top from step 1. I have 20 on the bottom from step 2. And 40 divided by 20 is giving me 2. The answer to part D is 2. Part E, negative 7 plus, in parentheses, 1 minus 5. Then we square it, and then we divide by 4. Let's start with the parentheses first. So 1 plus negative 5 gives me negative 4. So what I have, after I simplify what's inside the parentheses, only this part, okay? I'm rewriting my problem, and I have negative 7 plus negative 4 squared divided by 4. So my next step is going to be squaring the negative 4. Okay, so this is my next step. Negative 4 squared means negative 4 times negative 4. So you have negative 7 plus 16 divided by 4. My next step is division. So 16 divided by 4 is a 4. So I have negative 7 plus 4. I have negative number adding to a positive number. 7 is bigger than 4, so that means the answer is negative. And then the difference between 7 and 4 is 3, so the answer is negative 3. All right. Part F. We have a lot going on, so I'm going to focus on the first square brackets. In the square brackets, I have 2 squares going, negative 8 squared, and then minus 5 squared. So I'm going to have to do those first, the squares. Then I'm going to subtract. Then I'm going to drop the parentheses, do the second one, negative 4 plus 1, and then finally I'm going to divide. So let's go ahead and start with the negative 8 squared. That would be negative 8 times negative 8, which is 64, plus, I'm sorry, that's not a plus. That's a minus. So 64 minus 5 squared. 5 squared means 5 times 5, so which is 25. So still in this little brackets, divided by negative 4 plus 1. All right, so let's do 64 minus 25. That will give me 39. Now I can drop the brackets because it's just one number, divided by and then -4 plus 1. So my next step is to do -4 plus 1. 4 is a bigger value and it's a negative, so it's going to be a negative number, and then the difference between 4 and 1 is a 3. So what I have is 39 divided by -3. All right, so I'm dividing positive by a negative. The answer is a negative, and then 39 divided by 3 is 13. So the answer is -13. I went a little bit fast over these problems because this is a review of everything that we've learned so far. Evaluating expressions is also a review of what we have done before. So here we go. We have a plus 7b. A is a -3, b is a -6. So I'm going to replace a and b with the value given. So I have -3 plus 7 times -6. All right, so in following the order of operations, I am going to multiply 7 by -6. And then 7 times -6 is going to be -42. So I'm adding two negative numbers. The answer is -45. Okay. In part B, I have W from plus 2y minus z. W is -9, y is 10, z is -3. All right, so let's go ahead and drop them in. I have -9 plus 2 times -3. Sorry, 2 times 10. Just looking at z. Plus 2 times 10 and minus -3. Okay, so I have addition, multiplication, and subtraction. I'm going to do multiplication first, so I have -9 plus 20 minus -3. All right, so I'm going to do -9 plus 20. 20 is the bigger value, so it's going to be a positive answer. We're going to have a positive answer. And then the difference between 20 and 9 is 11. So we have 11 minus -3. All right, so now we're going to eliminate those double negatives. So it's going to be 11 plus 3. The answer is 15. 14. It's getting late. The answer is 14. Okay. We have two more problems. Evaluating. So I have -2. Multiply the absolute value of 4a minus b when a is -8 and b is -2. So I'm going to start by plugging everything in. So -2, absolute value, 4 times -8 minus -2. Be very careful with all the negative and minus signs. Okay, so just I want to highlight that I do have a subtraction. This is my subtraction sign. And the second negative came from the b being -2. So that's how I got the double negative. All right, so let's follow the order of operations. I'm looking inside the absolute value right now. I'm looking inside the absolute value equation. And I am going to multiply first, and then I'm going to do that subtraction. Chances are I am going to change that to a plus, but all in due time. So I have -2, absolute value. 4 times -8 is -32 inside the absolute value brackets. Double negative gives me positive, so +2. Close the absolute value. All right. So inside the absolute value brackets, I have -32 plus 2, which gives me -30. So I still have negative 2 on the outside. Inside the absolute value, I have negative 30. And now I'm ready to drop the absolute value brackets because negative 30 is 30 units away from a 0. So that means it's a positive 30. So negative 2 times 30, negative times positive gives you a negative, so negative 16. And the last one, part D, we have 4 minus, and inside the absolute value brackets, we have c squared minus d squared. C is 3, d is negative 5. Let's plug everything in. 4 minus, so I have 3 squared minus negative 5 squared, all inside the absolute value brackets. All right, so I'm going to find the negative 5 squared first. So 4 minus 3 squared minus. Negative 5 squared means negative 5 times negative 5, which is 25. All right, next step is I am going to find 3 squared. So I have 4 minus 3 squared is 9. 3 times 3 minus 25. It's 9 minus 25 still inside the absolute value brackets. So I'm going to change the subtraction problem into the addition problem. 9 plus negative 25. All right. So it's got 9 plus negative 25 is going to give you negative 14. So 4 minus absolute value of negative 14. Now I'm finally ready to drop my absolute value brackets. But first I need to verify how far negative 14 from 0. It's exactly 14 units away. So when I drop the negative value brackets, I have 4 minus 14. So change that into the addition problem. 4 plus negative 14, and you will get negative 10 as the answer. That's our answer. That concludes our lesson 3.4.